Hello ladies and gentlemen, Excellent Toro here, and welcome back to another YouTube video. Now I hope you're all doing well today, because I am as usual, and in this YouTube video we're going to be discussing some of the top tips for infinite flight. Now these tips are applicable to whether you're playing online multiplayer or not online, but there will be a few multiplayer tips in this video. Now, I also want to apologise as well if I'm not replying to as many comments as I usually would. I'm currently in the middle of packing for university, so it's a little bit manic at home, but I'm trying to reply to as many comments as I can. Now, infinite flight. So this video about tips. Now, infinite flight can be quite a hard simulator to play really if this is your first time playing, and it actually has quite a younger audience. I remember when I first played infinite flight, I was like 11, 10. I had not a clue what to do. So we have hopped into solo mode, and I think one of the most important tips you can have in infinite flight is your graphics. Now, funny enough, you can see here that on high graphics, I'm a little bit laggy. You can see it's just a little bit laggy. And you don't need the highest graphics, you can always put it on medium or low. Now, I tend to use medium, but I think it's just a good tip because you'd much rather have a smooth working flight simulator than, a laggy flight simulator, which is a bit boring. Now, you can see here we are in a United 737 as well, and it's quite a beautiful looking aircraft, this one. I think it's really pretty, the United 737. Now, another cool tip I've got is using this locked free camera. Now, you can see that it's locked the exterior drone, and I can always come back to it, and it'll be exactly where I left it. And it always stays relative to the plane. Now, something I think that's quite cool is normally this is more applicable to an aircraft with an interior cabin, so I'll show you that in a minute. But it's always good to have a few extra shots you can do, especially if you're someone who likes getting screenshots. It's a pretty cool and good idea to use that free camera, because you can always get a few extra shots. Now, the next thing I want to discuss is flight plans. Now, I'd always make up your own flight plan, and I have got a tutorial as well on how to make a good flight plan. So we should do a very simple one here. One of the most basic old school infinite flight plans, and let's try and find Boston. Where's Boston? Literally, this is about as basic as a flight plan can get in infinite flight. Oh my gosh, this is taking me back to old days, and literally it's just a straight line to the final airport. Now, I think making sure doing the flight plans yourself, I think it's a good thing to do. And one of the reasons for that is you actually know what you're doing and where you're going. Because I feel like if you do use, an online flight plan, yeah, sure, it increases realism. But with your own made flight plan, it gives you better awareness of where you are, how far along your route you are. Now, of course, you can do that visually. And I think it just adds to the fun of the mobile flight simulator a little bit as well. Now, something else you want to talk about as well is when you use your own flight plan, set altitude. So let's say for here you want to be at 3,000 feet. We can go, it's Livron. Here's Livron, and we're going to set altitude for, let's go 3,300 feet. Just entering final, a little bit higher. I'd imagine Boston's a bit above ground. Oh, it's 19. Okay, we want about 3,000 feet is your altitude. So when you're entering final, now final, for me, I think I might be wrong, but this, you see the little red triangle and grey triangles? For me, I think that is final. I'm pretty sure final somewhere along here, but I consider that final. Now, I might be wrong. Again, this isn't really a realism video. This is a tips and tricks. And you want to be 3,000 feet above the runway when entering that. Now, that's just for me for preference. Of course, it's different as aircraft vary, but that is what I go for depending on the aircraft I use. But generally, 3,000 feet is a pretty safe thing to have. Again, you don't want it above sea level, you want it more 3,000 feet above the altitude of the runway. And you can find the altitude of the runway by just clicking on the airport here, and it tells you there the runway. I don't know if you guys can see it, it might be clipped off, but it says 19 foot for Boston there, and it might change for different airports. So again, I think that's quite important. Make sure you're at that altitude. Now, you can see here we've got V-NAV. Now, what V-NAV does is it automatically descends you. So hopefully, if I go on short final here, and I just set the autopilot on vertical speed, we should have a bit of a better vertical speed, to be honest. And we do that so we aren't climbing. And we are currently nose plummeting into the ground. So let's just set our altitude for 1,000 feet, and my next tip includes the vertical navigation system. Now, the vertical navigation system is something that not all pilots use. And I don't know if you're an older infinite flight user, but you might remember what infinite flight was like before we had the vertical navigation. Now, we do have LNAV, which is what you press to follow your flight plan. So you can see we've just engaged it there. And as we do approach our 1,000 feet, very, very low, like unrealistically low cruise here, what you're going to want to press is your V-NAV button. And of course, it doesn't work until we're at cruise. Yeah, so we can't enable it during climb, unfortunately, which is what I wanted to do. And I just want to, for some reason, our plane isn't following our LNAV, and our V-NAV is not working either. Come on. So while we just wait for the V-NAV to quickly, there we go. So V-NAV is only available for descent. It's not working for some reason. I really don't actually know why. Active leg. We are set on that. Okay, well, so for some reason the aircraft isn't following autopilot for us today, which is quite annoying. However, make sure you use V-NAV. That is the tip. So V-NAV will control your descent as well. Now, another important tip I got, so with airports, when you go onto an airport and you choose the runways, let's say we want to land on 13 left here. So we'll find 13 left down here. It's the one at the top. You guys will not be able to see it. And I'm going to press set nav 1 there. And you can see that autopilot's actually now following nav 1. And what it does is it enables the glide slope for us. Now, you can see the glide slope on our screen. Probably not very well because we're a little bit low for it. So we're just going to do a very quick turn. And you can see where the altitude is at 12,000 feet. Following the glide slope on descent is very important. What a bank angle. Not very realistic again. And this is, again, another very important tip. Make sure you use the glide slope. Now, I might, in my landing tutorial, my most recent one, I have spoken and explained the glide slope. And following the glide slope is perfect because it helps you exactly get to the right altitude for the runway. Now, I do know we're at almost 300 knots. That's a very, very fast speed, extremely fast, like a cruise stupid speed. But what I'm trying to do is get us to a bearable altitude. So there we go. You can see that the glide slope has entered our screen, and that's the little green diamond. Right next to it says 12,600 right on the right hand side of the screen. And what you want to do is sort of follow that into landing. Now, I do know we are extremely fast for landing. But yeah, basically you want to keep that as central as you can. Right now we're below the glide slope. And you just follow that until you land on the runway. So I think that is a very important thing to have. Okay, so my next tip I've got for us all is on an online server. So it's more of a go by. If you've just reached grade 3, don't use expert server, yes. Use training server for another 5 to 10 flights at least. Now, the reason for this is because expert server's hard, okay? It's strict and it's hard. Now, I'd use training server because I think, again, it's just a little bit more easier and relaxed. You get more chances before you get banned for doing any wrongdoings. And I'd also look to follow as many tutorials as you can. Now, there are some in the Infinite Flight YouTube channel. Some people find them a little bit dull. I don't know. I don't actually watch them, if you want the honest opinion. I sort of just go with the flow and see what happens. But yeah, so that would be a bit of advice if you're someone who has recently just gone into doing that and you're new to all of the servers. Now, I'd also look into joining virtual airlines and all of these stuff. Now, these are just general stuff if you're looking to fly with other people. Of course, you can join my Discord server link down below, and there's always people happy to fly in there, especially me. I will be doing a flight with everyone later today, fun fact. So that's good to hear, and I'm recording this on the day of the flight I plan on doing. So if you want to hop in, please do feel free to hop into the server. Okay, so that's pretty much all of it for most of my first tips I've got for you all. I do have the second video planned up with some more tips for Infinite Flight, and I'll get a few videos of these out because I'm sure people will give me more advice on what other tips they'd like to see. But just my last final tip is, as soon as you spawn, get all of your things to join up to the aircraft. So catering, I'm not too sure why the terminal things haven't loaded in, the jetways haven't loaded in. If this ever happens to you, luckily it's happened for the tip video, you will just go on to one of these, general, press clear cache, confirm it, and that should pretty much solve your scenery issue. And then when you load back in, hopefully it will be okay, and that should now be loaded back. No, it's not. Okay, so if a flight just breaks sometimes, the best thing to do here is just to reload it. That wasn't a very good tip, but yeah, I'd recommend loading all of these up, and then when you, or even don't have the passenger connected first, and then once your catering is done, disconnect the catering and the passengers. But I think it's very important to have all of these to cater up, and also make sure with your weight and balance, you don't need 15 hours fuel for a 3 hour flight. For a 3 hour flight, if it's 3 hours on the dot, you only really need 3 hours 40 minutes fuel or something, but you can Google the actual needed amount. However, if you did find this tip video helpful, please make sure you like and subscribe. All the support means everything. Other than that, I'll see you in my next video. Good night.
Find your way.